Understanding Ancient Indian Vedic Age. Exploring ancient Indian history. The Vedic Age, which spans from around 1500 BCE to 600 BCE, represents a transformative period in ancient Indian history, characterized by profound intellectual, religious, social, and cultural developments. This era is named after the Vedas, a body of sacred texts composed in Sanskrit that constitute the earliest literary record of Indian civilization. These texts not only form the foundation of Hindu philosophy and religious practice, but also provide insight into the social and political structures, economy, and everyday life of the time. In this detailed exploration, we will examine the various aspects of the Vedic age, including its historical context, the composition of the Vedas, the social and political framework, religious beliefs, and its enduring legacy. The Vedic age began with the migration of the Indo-Aryans into the Indian subcontinent, particularly into the northwestern region known as Sapta Sindhu, which included the present-day Punjab, Haryana, and parts of Rajasthan. These Indo-Aryans were a nomadic group that gradually settled in the region after the decline of the Indus Valley civilization, which lasted from around 3300 BCE to 1300 BCE. The Indo-Aryans were part of a larger Indo-European family that spanned across Europe and Asia. Their arrival into India is dated around 1500 BCE, though this timeline remains a subject of academic debate. The Vedic texts suggest a gradual assimilation with the local population, and over time, these settlers developed a sophisticated society centered around pastoralism, agriculture, warfare, and religion. The Vedic period is divided into two phases. The early Vedic period, from around 1500 BCE to 1000 BCE, primarily saw the composition of the Rigveda, the oldest of the four Vedas, and the society was largely pastoral and tribal, organized around clans. The later Vedic period, from around 1000 BCE to 600 BCE, was marked by the composition of the other three Vedas, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva. And this period witnessed the expansion of Indo-Aryan settlements into the Gangetic plains and the rise of more complex political structures, such as kingdoms known as Mahajanapadas. The word Veda comes from the Sanskrit root vid, meaning knowledge. The Vedas are considered Shruti, which means that which is heard, indicating they were passed down orally from one generation to another before being written down much later. There are four Vedas, each with distinct purposes, but all are fundamentally linked to religious practices and philosophical ideas. The Rigveda, composed of 1028 hymns, is the oldest Veda and is primarily a collection of hymns dedicated to various deities such as Agni, the fire god, Indra, the king of gods and rain, and Soma, a sacred plant. It provides a glimpse into early Vedic society, religion, and the natural environment. The Samaveda is essentially a collection of hymns from the Rigveda, but set to melodies and meant to be sung during religious rituals. It is the foundation of Indian classical music. The Yajurveda consists of mantras and instructions for conducting rituals and sacrifices, known as yajnas. It has two main recensions, the Krishna Yajurveda or Black Yajurveda and the Shukla Yajurveda or White Yajurveda, which differ in their arrangement and content. The Atharvaveda, a later addition to the Vedic canon, contains hymns, spells, and incantations for everyday life, such as healing, protection, and prosperity, reflecting a broader concern with practical issues beyond religious rituals. Vedic society was patriarchal and stratified, with a growing emphasis on the division of labor and social hierarchy. The early Vedic period was relatively egalitarian, but by the later Vedic period, the Varna system, a fourfold classification of society, began to take shape, laying the foundation for the caste system that would dominate Indian society for millennia. The Brahmins, or priests, were the highest class, responsible for performing rituals, sacrifices, and preserving sacred knowledge. The Kshatriyas, or warriors, were the ruling and warrior class, tasked with protecting the land and its people. The Vaishyas, or merchants and farmers, were involved in agriculture, trade, and commerce. The Shudras, or laborers and service providers, were assigned to menial tasks and manual labor. This stratified system, although initially fluid, became rigid over time and was sanctioned by religious texts like the Dharma Shastras, which codified the roles and duties of each Varna. The early Vedic period was marked by tribal political structures led by chiefs known as Rajas, who were selected by the tribal assemblies called Sabha and Samiti. These assemblies played a significant role in governance, although the chiefs wielded considerable authority, often leading in war and acting as custodians of religious rituals. As Vedic society evolved, the political structure became more centralized, with the later Vedic period seeing the rise of Mahajanapadas, large kingdoms or republics governed by hereditary monarchies or oligarchies. The Vedic economy was initially based on pastoralism, with cattle being a key measure of wealth. The term Gavishthi, meaning searching for cows, reflects the importance of cattle in the early Vedic period. Gradually, with the spread of settlements in the Gangetic plains, agriculture became the primary occupation, supplemented by trade, which grew more complex during the later Vedic period. Barter was common, but by the end of the Vedic age, coins started to emerge as a medium of exchange. Religion and philosophy in the Vedic age were deeply intertwined with the natural world and the cosmos. The Vedic religion was polytheistic, worshipping forces of nature and abstract concepts personified as gods. The early Vedic deities were primarily associated with natural elements. Indra, the god of rain and thunder, was the king of the gods, often depicted as a warrior slaying demons. Agni, the god of fire, was crucial to Vedic rituals, as fire was the medium through which offerings were made to the gods. Varuna, the guardian of cosmic law, represented moral and natural order. Soma, associated with a sacred drink and the moon, was central to rituals that sought to connect humans with divine ecstasy. Rituals and sacrifices, known as yajnas, were a key component of Vedic religion. Yajnas were conducted to appease the gods, secure material prosperity, and maintain cosmic order. Complex rituals, such as the Ashvamedha, or horse sacrifice, and the Rajasuya, or royal consecration, were performed by kings to demonstrate their power and legitimize their rule. By the later Vedic period, religious thought began to shift from a purely ritualistic approach to more introspective and philosophical ideas. This transition is reflected in the Upanishads, which are commentaries on the Vedic texts, but focus on metaphysical questions about the nature of existence, the self, and the ultimate reality. The Upanishads laid the groundwork for many schools of Hindu philosophy, such as Vedanta. The Vedic age also witnessed significant intellectual advancements in science, mathematics, and astronomy, much of which is recorded in the Vedangas, the auxiliary sciences connected to the Vedas. Some key achievements include: in astronomy and calendrics, the Vedic people had a sophisticated understanding of the cosmos, including knowledge of the solar and lunar cycles, which were crucial for performing rituals at the appropriate times. In mathematics, Vedic mathematics laid the foundation for later advancements, particularly in geometry, which was essential for constructing altars and other religious structures. Early forms of Ayurvedic medicine are found in the Atharvaveda, which includes descriptions of diseases and their treatments using herbs and natural remedies. The legacy of the Vedic age continues to influence Indian civilization in profound ways. The Vedic texts form the foundation of Hindu religious and philosophical traditions. The Varna system, while highly criticized today, shaped the social hierarchy of India for centuries. Moreover, the philosophical concepts introduced in the Upanishads, such as karma, dharma, and moksha, have become central to not only Hinduism but also to other Indian religions like Buddhism and Jainism. In terms of historical influence, the Vedic period laid the groundwork for the subsequent rise of major Indian empires such as the Maurya and Gupta empires. The transition from the Vedic age to the age of Mahajanapadas also set the stage for the development of Buddhism and Jainism, two major religious movements that would challenge the Vedic orthodoxy. The Vedic Age was a period of significant transformation in ancient Indian history, marking the transition from a semi-nomadic, tribal society to a settled, agrarian civilization with complex political structures, religious rituals, and intellectual achievements. The texts of this period, especially the Vedas and the Upanishads, continue to be revered in modern India, shaping the country's spiritual, philosophical, and cultural landscape. As the bedrock of Indian civilization, the Vedic Age's influence extends beyond religious practices to its profound impact on social structures, governance, and intellectual pursuits. Its legacy, seen in the deep-rooted philosophical ideas, societal norms, and cultural expressions, remains central to the understanding of India's historical development and its continuity into modernity. As the Vedic Age gave way to the age of the Mahajanapadas around 600 BCE, many of the concepts and societal norms introduced during this time became more formalized and influential. The transition from Vedic society to the later classical period of India saw the development of large, centralized kingdoms, complex urban centers, and the rise of significant religious movements such as Buddhism and Jainism, which both arose as responses to the increasing rigidity of the Vedic tradition, particularly the caste system and the ritualistic dominance of the Brahmins. By the end of the Vedic Age, the Indo-Aryans had expanded into the fertile Gangetic plains, which led to the establishment of large urban settlements. The Vedic pastoral lifestyle gradually transformed into a settled agricultural society. The Mahajanapadas, large territorial units, emerged during this time. Among the 16 major Mahajanapadas, prominent ones like Magadha, Kosala, and Kuru would go on to play a pivotal role in Indian history, leading to the eventual rise of major empires. These urban centers fostered economic growth, supported by trade routes that connected India to Central Asia, the Middle East, and even parts of the Mediterranean world. The Ganges River became a crucial lifeline for trade, culture, and political power, significantly contributing to the prosperity of these regions. The later Vedic period's focus on complex rituals and hierarchical social structures began to face challenges. This gave rise to new ways of thinking that questioned the efficacy of rituals and the social inequalities imposed by the Varna system. Thinkers and sages from this period began to develop Sramana movements, a collective term for non-Vedic religious traditions. Buddhism, founded by Gautama Buddha, and Jainism, founded by Mahavira, both emerged as powerful reformative forces that critiqued the Vedic orthodoxy. These religions rejected the authority of the Vedas, the rigid caste system, and the elaborate sacrificial rituals, focusing instead on personal spiritual development, ethics, and non-violence. Despite the evolution and transformation of Indian society, the core tenets of the Vedic Age continued to permeate various aspects of Indian culture and civilization for centuries. The philosophical ideas introduced in the Vedic and Upanishadic texts laid the foundation for Indian metaphysics, ethics, and cosmology. The exploration of concepts like Atman, the soul, and Brahman, the ultimate reality, became central to not only Hinduism but also to the broader Indian intellectual tradition. Vedic literature, particularly the hymns, chants, and rituals, became the bedrock of later Indian literary traditions. Classical Sanskrit literature, which developed in the post-Vedic era, continued to draw heavily from the Vedic texts in both form and content. The epics, Ramayana and Mahabharata, though written later, are replete with Vedic ideas and concepts, particularly in their discussions of dharma, duty, and karma, the moral law of cause and effect. In the realm of art and architecture, the ritualistic practices of the Vedic age influenced temple construction, iconography, and even the layout of sacred spaces. Temples built in later periods often mirrored the cosmological and mythological ideas found in Vedic texts, with deities like Vishnu and Shiva, who began to gain prominence towards the end of the Vedic age, becoming central figures in Hindu worship. The Vedic Age was an era of profound transformation in ancient Indian history. It set the stage for the later developments in Indian culture, religion, politics, and society that have continued to shape the subcontinent for millennia. The social structures, political organizations, and religious practices developed during this time provided the framework upon which subsequent Indian empires and civilizations were built. The philosophical and religious ideas that emerged during the Vedic Age, especially through texts like the Vedas and the Upanishads, remain central to the intellectual traditions of not only Hinduism but also other religions that arose in the Indian subcontinent. Concepts like dharma, karma, and moksha, initially explored in the Vedic texts, continue to inform ethical, social, and spiritual discourse in India today. In the modern context, the Vedic Age is not only a subject of historical inquiry, but also of cultural identity. The resurgence of interest in the Vedas and Vedic traditions has led to their revival in various forms, from religious rituals to educational curricula. Vedic mathematics, for example, has found new applications in contemporary fields, and the study of Vedic texts remains a vital part of Indian spiritual and intellectual life. In conclusion, the Vedic Age, with its rich legacy of knowledge, social organization, and religious thought, serves as a cornerstone of Indian civilization. Its influence continues to resonate across various facets of Indian culture, making it one of the most significant periods in the history of the subcontinent. Understanding the Vedic Age offers crucial insights into the foundations of India's historical evolution and the enduring legacy of its ancient wisdom.